Great. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone from whichever part of the world you are joining from today for our live session. So, we are going to start with episode 1 of the Get Certified series. In this series, we are going to guide you around the step by step of mastering the new DP-700 certification, which I think you would have heard about, which is the Fabric Data Engineer certification. So, as part of this first topic on day 1, we are going to look at implementing and managing analytics solutions. So, before we get started, I want to quickly introduce about myself and also my co-presenter. So I'm Anupama Natarajan, and I'm a Microsoft data platform as well as an AI MVP from Wellington, New Zealand. And if you have any questions post this session, and if you want to reach out to me for any questions or clarifications, feel free to reach out to me. And here is my LinkedIn profile and my website. And I will pass it on to Amit.
Hello everyone, my name is Amit Chandak. I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I am Microsoft Power BI Community Super User. And in case you want to reach me, you can reach me on my LinkedIn profile or my website. I am also a YouTuber. You can find my channel with the same name.
Yeah,
Passing
and
it
also
back to
don't That's right. Also, don't miss it because Amit has got a lot of videos on his YouTube channel too. And also check our websites, and we talk a lot about the data platform and AI related topics. Great. And we are not just alone here. We are supported by our moderators, and we have got Andre and David, and they are available in the chat to answer your questions. So it's a live session. So if you still have any questions as we are presenting, feel free to put your questions and in the chat, and they will be able to assist you to answer those questions. So what are we going to look at? So as I said, this is going to be the first episode in this whole series. And we are going to talk about implementing and managing analytics solutions, which is part of the DP-700 Fabric Data Engineer certification. And followed by this, I think tomorrow we have another session on ingest and transform data. And then on Thursday, we have monitor and optimize your solutions. And the last topic, which is on 7th of February, we have an exam day and also an open Q&A session where we have got topics that we will be talking about how to prepare for the exam day and get ready for your DP-700 certification. So let us quickly get into the topic. And before that, hopefully, I think Amit, like you would have known about this particular event that is coming end of March and early April. And this is the Fabricon event happening in Las Vegas. So you have a discount code, and you're watching here, which is like $150 discount. So if you get an opportunity like to pop in to come to this particular event, I will definitely recommend. And also there are some discounted tickets for Microsoft partners that are currently available on the website. So please check it out. And also, like if you can make it, that would be a great experience for you. What do you think, Amit?
Yeah, I was there last year, and it has been a great experience. This time, I'm also planning. So hopefully, see some of you there at Las Vegas. It's going to be a great event. Last time there were 4,000 people. We are expecting there could be a little more this time, and lots of session. And you get a chance to meet the product team, ask your questions, and that's a great experience.
That's great. So I'll also try to meet you this time when I'm over there. Great. And also, we are providing you a 50% discount. So when I say we, it's Microsoft providing you 50% discount for the DP-700 exam. And this is a limited time offer. So it ends 31st March 2025. So try and grab your 50% discount for your exam. And this series, the whole series that we are going presenting, right, along with our colleagues, this is going to get you all the things that you require in order to get prepared for the DP-700 certification. And note down the URL, and we will also like showcase it again. And as I said, this is a live session, so you can say hi and to the rest of the participants who are joining from the different part of the world, and also ask your questions in the chat. So we have moderators who will be responding to your questions, and also like they can take up a lot of questions, and also some of the questions we can take it up to towards the end of the session based on the time. Great. So let us get started then. And before I move on to the agenda, so I wanted to quickly talk about the implement and manage analytics solutions topic. And there is a study guide that is available for DP-700 exam. So aka.ms /DP-700 study guide. If you navigate to this URL, you will get to know all the topics that you need to
A.ms
in order
forward
to
slash DP-700 study guide.
take up as part of the certification. So make sure to bookmark this URL. So what are we going to cover today? And so we are going to start with DP-203 and DP-700 skill comparison. And this is really important because quite a few of us, like we are in the data analytics space for a lot of years, and we have been having the DP 203 certification. And that is the important aspect. And that's what the certification we had all these days. And now we are going to transition to DP 700. So it is really important to understand, like, okay, what are the skills that was covered with DP-203 and what is going to be covered as part of DP-700. And followed by that, we are going to give you a quick introduction about Microsoft Fabric, the one-stop shop of the data and analytics platform for a lot of organizations. We are going to just walk you through around how to understand and manage a Fabric environment. And followed by that, we are going to talk about some of the ingestion and storage techniques that are available in Fabric that you can utilize for your workloads. And we are also look at how to integrate different data sources inside Microsoft Fabric. And last but not the least, we are going to wrap it up the session with some practical tips that is going to help you to succeed with the DP-700 certification. So there is a lot of content for us to cover. So without any further delay, we will keep going. So over to you, Amit. Do you want to take us through the DP-203 and DP-700 skills comparison?
Yes. So DP-203 is the older one. If you remember, we used to have a DP-203 exam, which is basically for data engineering on Microsoft Azure. And now we have DP-700, which is data engineering using Microsoft Fabric. So this is going to be a Fabric exam. On the next slide, what you will see is the comparison between the two technologies. So basically the DP-200 exam and DP-700 exam, if you look closely, they look very similar. There is a small change of distribution in the design and implementation data sources and develop data processing versus implementation and management of data analytics and ingestion and transformation. So the first exam was focusing on engineering on Azure, data engineering on Azure. The second one is focusing on deep data engineering on Microsoft Fabric.
That's the
So
important part here, right, Amit? Like the focus on DP-203 is Azure because it's PaaS, whereas Fabric is a SaaS. So I think the focus has been completely on a SaaS platform now.
yeah, so completely focus on SaaS platform, and Fabric is an integrated platform. So there are few places you will find it much more easier compared to Microsoft Azure. And in terms of feature, you will also find differences if even if the similar things are there like data pipeline or data flow uh, Gen 2, which is data flow there in Azure. So those
Yeah,
kind of differences are there. But if somebody is DP-203, they will find it, almost all kind of technology what they've learned in the past, they will also be able to find the equivalent here. As usual, there is always a unlearn and learn and reskill, which is also need to be there. But anybody who is there DP-203, they can give the thumbs up and we will know how many of you are there. And I think for DP-203, when you are giving a DP-700, it's already a 50% off on the DP-700 exam. And other than that, we are also giving a coupon here for 50% off.
excellent.
So let's see more details. Now, this is a detailed comparison about DP 700 and 203. So both the certification are foundation skills like data ingestion, transformation, and monitoring. But their focus
That's right.
areas are slightly different. So one is Fabric and one is Azure. So DP 203 was comprehensive data engineering across Azure, emphasize on wide range of engineering tasks, batch stream processing, partitioning strategy, and data security. And it was ideal for someone who are looking into end-to-end pipelines and Azure tools. So in Azure, we have Azure Databricks, Azure Data Factory, Azure Cosmos DB, all these components were there. And we have Azure Synapse also. Now,
Yeah,
DP-700 is more centric approach about Fabric. So
that's
as you
right.
know, we have the integrated Microsoft Fabric. Now, Here, what would happen is the life cycle management, security, and governance. So please remember, security and governance play a big role here, and leveraging Fabric unified ecosystem for the performance optimization.
Yeah, that's
Now,
a great point, Amit, that you highlighted, because that point which talks about security and governance, that has got a big emphasis when it comes to DP-700 exam.
yeah, and then I think some of you has given DP-700, and when you give the DP-7, some of you have already given DP-600, and now when you go to give DP-700, you have to pay attention to the detail where the differences are. Both the courses are available, and I think we have done learn together last year on DP-600, and now we are doing this series on DP-700. So just to be aware of the differences. Just don't think these are two similar exams.
Cool.
So then DP-700 is a center on Fabric's unified workspace, streamlining the workflows across ingestion, while DP-203 was a multiple Azure services. Now here all the services are together, so you don't have to search, where is that service and where is that documentation. Here it's all at the one place. And
So when you
as
talk about the services you're mentioning about, like data science, data engineering,
Yes.
like analytics and real-time intelligence, and all those things are bundled everything together within Fabric, right?
Yes. So Fabric, as we're going to discuss in upcoming slide, that we have integrated whatever is required all at one place. So
Cool.
now we don't have to, go and search for, okay, should I take Cosmos DB or Synapse or Azure SQL, or should
Yeah,
I do this on this technology versus X technology? Azure is a system where, everything is available from the world. Best of the technologies are available. But in Microsoft, out of those best, Microsoft Fabric provides you a set of best technologies, and for doing certain things still you have choices, but yes, we still have one unified centralized environment, which we'll try to understand in upcoming slide. So
excellent.
now on the next slide we will understand the key differences between DP-203 and DP-700. Now, DP-203 used to cover the broad range of Azure services, focusing on data storage, processing, pipeline, securing across multiple Azure tools. And this is ideal for data engineering working in diverse environment. Why we are saying diverse? Because all the things were spread across the Azure with multiple choices.
That's
Okay.
right.
While DP-700 is centered on Microsoft Fabric, emphasizing on optimizing the analytical solution around unified platform, which is Microsoft Fabric, designed for engineering transitions or working exclusively with Fabric. So here the focus is Fabric. Now let's move ahead, and we would now like to introduce you Microsoft Fabric. Now this is something I think we are talking about for last 1.5 years, since its beginning of the era of Microsoft Fabric, since it is launched on 23rd May 2023 on public preview, and it became GA in the same year, November, around 15th of November. So when we so the let's look at the diagram of this diagram, and let me explain you a little bit. So when you look at this diagram and you see data factory, data engineering, data warehousing, data science, real-time analytics, and Power BI coming together, don't think it's a kit. It's not a kit like, you go to Azure and pick up and just get entire stuff done. It's not like that. Basically what Microsoft has done is Microsoft has done ground up work to bring all these technologies together. So when you work in data factory like data pipeline or data flow gen 2, or when you
Yeah,
work in warehouse or lake house or notebooks or Power BI, you will feel a unified experience. And one of the things which Microsoft has done is that they have created a unified storage, or a single storage for everything is one lake. So there are three things.
that's right.
We talk about one lake, which is the single storage across your tenant. Then there is a common compute which you can use. Means all these technologies. Think about how many workloads you are talking about here. You are talking about data pipeline. You are talking about Power BI. You are talking about notebooks. Everything can use common workload or common CPU or common compute.
Yeah,
Now
I think
comes the
Amit, like
yeah.
when you talked about One Lake, right? One of the easiest way I like to tell customers about One Lake, because sometimes they get confused that with OneDrive. So I just tell them your OneDrive is for your files, and like One Lake is basically is for your data in Fabric, like similar to that, right? And also, when you are explaining these cool things about the different, the workloads here, like the data factory or data engineering, one thing really fascinates me and all the customers I talk to is how easy it is to provision Fabric and get started. And I think you are going to talk about that shortly, right? Like, I don't want to steal the thunder, But that's a great experience. Like I get to see with my customers, like, okay, if I want to get started with Fabric, it's so simple, right?
Yes. So I think prior to that, if you are in the Azure world, you have to, you have to get all the services up and running. Here
That's
we
right.
just create it inside one workspace like Lakehouse Warehouse, and it's up and running. Just give the permission and you get going. In the Azure world, you have to do so much of configuration. So I'll try to showcase a very small demo around that once we are done. Now, on the next slide, what we'll see is we'll talk about the third thing, which is the most important thing, is what this unification is also bringing for us. So we talked about one lake. Now so because everything has been reworked, you will feel unified experience. You will not feel when you're working on Power BI, some of the UIs, management UIs, or when you work on the SQL UI, or when you work on the Lakehouse UI or Notebook UI, you will not feel that oh, this is coming from a different word. It's the same word. When you come to security and governance, everything will start smoothly from the workspace level, going at the granular level. Whether you work with a Lakehouse, whether you work with a warehouse, whether you work with the real-time analytics or Power BI, you will find in the same manner all the permissions going up from the top level to down level. And on
So
top
one
of that,
thing, sorry, Amit, one thing you're pointing here is you're saying like your data will be in one lake, and any of these workloads, and if they need the same data. So for instance, if I bring my customer data from a CRM system and put it in one lake, if the customer data is required by the data science workload, or if it is required by the data engineering workload, they all can pull it from the same source, right? Single source of the
yes,
truth.
single source of truth. And I think we'll
Yeah.
just talk about the format, actually, the how the Microsoft has made it possible. So that was the third thing, and I think that's on the next slide, when the what they have done to make sure that we are able to use the same data across. And the reason for that is the format which has been chosen. So prior to that, what used to happen, let's say when I'm saving on SQL Server, it has its own format. When I
Yeah.
save it on Power BI, it has its own columnar format. And in Databricks, you have choice of saving it in anything. You can save in Delta. After that, you can save in any format, whatever you like. So what used to happen? We used to always say Power BI works best on import mode. Even if your data is all central truth lying on, you have done everything. Now, what happens is one of the biggest change which happen in Microsoft Fabric ecosystem is whenever you are saving the structured data, it is all saved in one single format, that is Delta. We also call it Delta Park. Parquet is
Okay.
the columnar format, and Delta is the incremental mode which allows you the asset transaction.
So
And
basically,
because
you're saying the files that are getting stored in one lake is is stored in the Delta Parquet format.
yes, if it
Okay.
is structured data,
Okay.
unstructured data
Excellent.
is still your choice, and that is where we have a slight difference. We talk about lake house and warehouse, and
Yeah.
people will ask, why you are talking about two technology when you have the same format of storage, because you can
Yeah.
still have the unstructured data, and lake
Right.
houses can store unstructured data, while warehouses is only about structured data. But whether it is
Yeah.
a lake house or warehouse, both stored structured data in delta format.
Okay.
It means when
Yeah.
you bring your bronze data into the lake house, you don't need its copy to get the transformation done in either a next lake house or next warehouse. Same way, Power BI
Excellent.
doesn't need a copy because Power BI also understand now this data format. So every tool here either can read or write, or can do both read and write in data format.
And I think that
So
is the important aspect, right? So with having a single foundational one lake where you can store all your data in a consistent format, which is your Delta Parquet format, and that makes all these other workloads like data factory or data engineering or data warehouse to seamlessly consume the data, or as you said, read or write back to one lake.
yes. So what happened now? You have one copy which we are also highlighting on this slide. That same copy can be used. So what happened
That's right.
previously? What used to happen when I used to do data engineering? I will bring my data to the bronze. So let's say I brought it to Lake. After Lake, when I need to transform, I typically used to use databases.
Yeah.
But databases doesn't. Most of the databases doesn't understand Lake. And even if they allow me external table, the speed and performance I will not get when I'm doing the transformation. So I was
Yeah.
forced to copy the data in data warehouse. Then
Yeah.
I used to create my silver and gold copy, and finally gold copy. I was very happy that I have a gold copy. But
So
what happens in
avoiding,
the gold? Yeah,
yeah, so
please go ahead.
single source of the truth, avoiding duplication of the data. Here you go. A lot of capabilities that One Lake offers to us, right? And also the single
Yes,
format in which the data is getting stored, especially the structured data.
yes. So when we move to the next slide, we will continue to explore these features. So this talk about the all data stored on one lake, and specifically like one is ADLS Gen 2. That's where it is coming in. All the data stored in delta packet, that's what we talked about. And the advantage, now you understand that, because the data is not going to be copied, you will need lesser copies. And understand, lesser copies also means lesser maintenance and lesser development cycle. Because
Yeah, less
every,
administrative overhead, right? So as data
yes,
engineers, like, you will have less administrative overhead. You don't want to repeatedly bring the same data again and again.
and think about it, let's say done my entire gold in a warehouse or something like Azure Cosmos DB. Now I need to import it in Power BI. I need to schedule that refresh, incremental or initial. Okay, now for that refresh it will take little bit amount of time to refresh, so there is a difference between the two data. Also I
Yeah,
have a refresh, but there is no refresh here in Fabric. Power BI sees the picture what we have in the warehouse.
excellent. This is my favorite slide, Amit, and yeah,
Yeah, so this is basically, there are two important things which Microsoft has done basically, mirroring and shortcuts. Now this is really special. One of the challenge for us is to bring the data from other sources, and
yeah,
specifically if those sources are already in Delta or they are not in Delta. So if the sources are in data format or even not in data format, let's say you have file, you can create shortcuts. You can even create shortcut to AWS. You can create shortcut to Google. You can create shortcut to ADLS Gen 2. And the great thing is, if something in ADLS Gen 2 is in delta format, we treat it as a table in Microsoft Fabric. So you can create a table shortcut. So there is a file shortcut, there is a table shortcut. So you can even
and
create a table shortcut.
a lot of people will be wondering, like, why should I use shortcuts, right? Like, it's a great feature, but it's not everyone is going to start consolidating their data now, because they already been doing having an analytics platform. They would have consolidated their data already in a ADLS Gen 2 a data lake. So now it's more or less for them is, how do I uh, you consume the data in Fabric without the need of duplicating the data again in one lake, right? And that's where
Yes.
shortcuts comes into play.
So the entire objective of this ecosystem is not to create the copies of data, and that is
That's
where
right.
the software again helping. And now what happens is, we do have limitation, like some of the things you cannot see across workspace, especially in warehouse. In Lakehouse now we have the new schema format where you can even look across workspaces.
Yeah.
Now in that case also shortcut helps. And what
Mm.
we do in our implementation, some of the implementation is, we may create multiple warehouses or lakehouses, but we create a shortcut lakehouse, and in that we start doing the reporting. So it allows us to still work in a distributed environment, but consolidating whatever we need in one single place when we need the reporting. And so there are patterns which will be evolving, because Microsoft Fabric provide you some of those things. I think we will have some kind of discussion later on these things. So there are various patterns which are possible, like how you will create gold, silver, and bronze. So lake house, or lake house, warehouse, all those patterns, you can try out. Now,
Cool. So the
this,
key part in this slide is the shortcuts, and there are one, not every data source will support shortcuts. That's the important part. So if your data source doesn't support shortcuts, then you have the another option is, what is that, mirroring? Because
so
it's
mirroring,
just
basically what happens, if today if I want to replicate a database, I need to write down the CDC, I have to manage it myself. Now
okay.
mirroring manage it by itself. So Microsoft take cares of bringing your data, bringing your incremental data. You have to just say mirror this, and it is supported for some of the database. And there is a
That's
generic
right.
mirroring which is also available by rule, which you can use. Otherwise, there are Microsoft is keep on adding databases here. One
Cool.
more
So if you're
important.
saying, if I have a transactional database sitting on Azure, hosted on Azure SQL, and by turning on mirroring, I don't need to do any sort of process to bring the data inside Fabric. The mirroring will take care of that, both the initial load as well as the ongoing incremental.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't have to take care of CDC. Think about how easy it is. I just click, then I am
Yes,
done.
that's
And
right.
then
And again,
important
the
thing.
catch point here is also, mirroring is currently supported only to a certain set of data sources, right? Similar to shortcuts. So probably the choice is like, okay, let me see whether my data source is supported by shortcuts, or is it supported by mirroring. If not, then I'll go with a typical ingestion process, right?
Yes. And those of you who are continuously watching now, copy data activity has also given, copy job activity has also given us upside. So some of
Yeah.
you doesn't have that, you can utilize that. and that's again very good because you can have multiple tables there and just use the upsert methodology to bring your data. Now, one important thing with the mirroring is the amount of free space which Microsoft gives you. So based
Okay.
on your capacity, let's say if you're on F2 capacity, you get 2 terabyte of free space. If you're on F64, you will get 64 terabyte of free space for mirroring, and that is really important. And my advice would be always look at the license page for that.
Okay. So when you
So
talk
that
about
is
the license, is what is the capacity that you are assigning to Fabric
yes.
workloads in your environment?
Yeah, and those of you are from Power BI world will find it little different because here capacity is must. So we have to buy
Okay.
capacity, storage, and then transfer pricing and Power BI licensing. These are the things which is required. But I think they would be discussed in some other day. So we will move now ahead with the more details into this ecosystem. Now, now we will understand the how to manage the Microsoft Fabric environment. So what I'll do is, while I'll show you a few things on the slides, I will at one stage will jump onto the demo and showcase you
Excellent.
showcase you all those things onto the screen so that you are able to understand these things. So let's understand these few definitions. So tenant is basically dedicated space for an organization to create, store, and manage Fabric items. So tenant is at the highest level. Then capacity. So we talked about capacity quite a few times this time. So capacity is a dedicated set of resources that are available on a given point of time to be used. So
Okay.
basically, this is what where you going to use compute. So basically, how you are going to compute. And this is little different. I think how the capacity is going to be used because there are different workloads who can use the same capacity. So that is why important thing is said that set of resources available. We are not saying set of this much available. So that's going to be shared across the all the workloads and they are going to utilize. Then comes the domain, and domain is basically a logical grouping, like business area wise. Like I want a sales domain or I want a finance domain. So basically, then we can allow the businesses to manage the things little well. So that's why domain has been created, and this is a logical grouping of workspaces.
Okay.
And workspace is the place wherein so we can create domains on the Microsoft Fabric and app, and workspace is the place where the containerization of the assets started. So workspace is a collection where we bring the different functionalities together. So you will have lakehouses, warehouses, a Power BI report, data set, everything inside this workspace.
So if I
And
work
so
on a data project, right? So pretty much I will have all the Fabric items related to the project in a single workspace. So I can look through, okay, what are the items, Fabric items this particular project is using?
yes, and then we will have the Fabric items. So basically, after you have the workspace, inside the workspace, you can have your lake houses, warehouses. So what I'm going to do is I'll just give you a brief demo of what all you can have inside the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem. So we will switch over and we'll go to the home page of app.fabric.microsoft.com. Now, while this is the experience which you have for Microsoft Fabric, app.powerbi.microsoft.com, what will happen? Some of you are coming from the Power BI world. So for the those who are coming from the Power BI world, your old URL app.powerbi.com is also going to work as a Power BI experience. So we have different experience here: data warehousing experience, data engineering experience. This is one consolidated Microsoft Fabric experience. And those of you who have not started the trial, you can see that we have started the trial, and some of us have enjoyed this trial for 1.5 years, though it was a 60 days trial. So you can start a trial, and I'm going to showcase you one screen how you're going to start the trial. So what happens when you go to your user profile right here on the top? If you click on that, you will see a free trial button. Using that, you can start the free trial. Now, please remember, even if you start a free trial, the Fabric will get enabled only when your tenant admin has given you the permission. And your tenant admin has to go to the settings, admin portal, and to the tenant setting, and they have to enable this users can create Fabric items. Once they enable this permission, you will be able to use the Fabric items. There are other related permissions also which you can use here and which will enable you to use different Fabric items.
And this is important what Amit is talking to you. So, especially if you're planning to prepare for DP-700, and if you're thinking about like how do I get my hands on with Microsoft Fabric, sign up for the free trial. So, 60 days is a lot of time, and not only you will understand about the concepts, but also practically you will be able to demonstrate how to use all these workloads within Fabric. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend if you haven't signed up for a Fabric trial yet, go ahead and do that.
And inside the admin portal only we have domains which we can create, just like I've created one sales domain. And when I'm going to create a workspace, I can assign this. Now, then we talked about capacity. So capacity is the compute which you require. So whatever capacities are there, you will be able to see your own capacity, but your admin will be able to see all the capacities. Like if you have purchased, it will come under fabric capacity. If you have not,
That's
like
right.
I have one purchase fabric capacity, but I've shut it down. Then I have a trial capacity, and you can see because I'm admin, I'm able to see all the trial capacities. And one important setting for the trial capacities, I'll tell you that you have something known as contributor permission. If you allow it for the organization, other people can also use the same trial capacity. They will be able to see while creating the workspace.
Excellent.
So this is your, so this entire this is my organization is my tenant. Inside that I have my one leg which is catering to me for all the storage, and inside that I have these multiple capacities which I can have. I can have multiple domains, and now I need the workspace to work. So everything finally start with the workspace. So what you have is there is a left hand side, you have an icon for workspace, and you can create a new workspace. Once you click on the create new workspace, you will be able to create a workspace. I'm not going to show you the complete step, just going to show you that you need to choose the capacity, the trial capacity or the fabric capacity if you want to use the Microsoft Fabric. Once you
And
create a
the
work,
key part here, Amit, is so I can have multiple workspaces sharing the same capacity, because if I go for a F64 capacity, right? So I can pretty much use that capacity across multiple workspaces.
yes.
Cool.
So the basic objective here is to basically we should able to share the capacity.
Yeah.
Now, when you go to the workspace, let's say if I go to a workspace and I have quite a few fabric workspaces here. Now, so if you see below here, these are all the items which I've created.
Cool.
Okay. What all new items I can create? If I want to create deployment pipelines is from migrating from one workspace to another workspace. We will have dev, test, production, all these kind of stuff. We want to create apps are especially important to give the content to the end user. So usually app contains the Power BI reports and we give it to the audience. Now we every app can have multiple audience. It is not that one audience would be there. Then manage access. We want to manage the access, means which person will get which, and there are four kind of permissions are there. I'll just showcase you that. And then we have workspace settings. Workspace setting will again different stuff is there. I'll go showcase you. And then we have the GitHub also available here. So these all items we can be source controlled also. I'll showcase you one workspace where we have already enabled the GitHub.
That's right. That's
Now,
important, right? So when you are creating any fabric items, you can source control them. You can deploy them using deployment pipelines, which means typically you can do your CI/CD process in
yes,
here.
and that's one of the main process that we all are looking forward, because understand this is a big ecosystem and you
Yeah.
need everything to be backed up. So while your data backup is taken care by Microsoft Fabric, your meta also need to be backup. I'm not going to create a pipeline if I lose one. So what is
That's
the
right.
best thing?
Yeah.
Source control in the GitHub. I have a dev environment. I don't want to do everything on the test environment again. So what need to be done? Use deployment pipelines.
And yeah.
So, and now this is the one thing which you wanted to have a look at, what all things Microsoft Fabric is providing you. So when you click on this new icon on the left, you see everything. Now this is something which is very familiar to the Power BI world: dashboards, reports, paginated report, and scorecard. But we have exploration, means just to explore the data, or gap, and real-time dashboard. This is really important. This came really new. Then get data, so many things to get the data: copy job, data pipelines. Data flow gen 1 is basically for Power BI world. Data flow gen 2 is something which we are looking forward to, which is from the Microsoft Fabric world. It has a
Right.
destination to from Lakehouse, warehouse, and SQL DB. Event streaming for live one. Then we talked about mirroring, as Anu already explained that we have various database for which we have out of the box mirroring. And then we have the mirror database preview, which is generic one. If you can code it, you can also do it. Then we have notebooks. If
And
you are the
also,
one who
one more thing, Amit, like they have to watch the space, right? So because even though mirroring supports only certain data stores currently, but just keep watching the space. And as you all know, we have a Fabric blog website that's available where we get the monthly updates of what are the new features that are releasing as part of Fabric. So I would definitely recommend that you sign up to that Fabric blog updates so that you get to see what even though today we say like, okay, these are the data sources that are supporting, next month there will be some additional data sources will be supported for mirroring. So always keep yourself up to date using the Fabric blog updates.
Yes, and the website is blog.fabric.microsoft.com. So very simple to remember.
That's right.
So you can subscribe to that. Now, storage, we talked about Lakehouse, Warehouse, and SQL database is something new, which actually allows you transactional database also. So now if I need to create an app, I don't need to go outside Fabric. I can have it. And it replicates data in data format with SQL Analytics endpoint. So I'm not going to access the same data for analytics. I have a copy in which is getting synced in every moment for me to have analysis. Then you have prepared data. We talked about some of those things. Then you have analyze and train. You have AI skill where you can talk in LLM. Means language. Basically, it's based on large language model. You can talk in NLP basically here. And
So
then we have
basically,
various
what
stuff
you're
around
saying is
it.
if you click on new item, pretty much everything that you want to create inside Fabric, it's available for you, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So these are the things, and let me. So then you, if you want, you can create deployment pipelines. Usually there are three stages: dev, test, and production. But now you can control that. You can have anywhere from two stages to many stages to create the deployment pipeline. It is all up to you. So you can have deployment pipelines. Okay. So something like this. Okay, it's already shown you here. But right now, I think I'm going to skip that part, go back to the workspace, and
Yep.
I'm going to show you two things. Basically, one is workspace settings. So these are your workspace setting, general settings, name, etc., licensing info. This is really important because from here, you will be able to change your capacity if needed. If you are
Yeah,
unable to do
that's
this,
another thing. So if you don't, you're not get stuck with at the time of creating the workspace, you assign a capacity. But if you think that your workload has increased and you may need to go for a much more higher capacity, you can always go back and update the workspace with a newer capacity if required.
yes. And if you are not able to change, it means admin has not given permission. Admin will be able to see all the
Change it.
capacities at the place we have seen, and they will be able to shift the workspaces from there.
Cool.
Then whatever your Azure connections like ADLS Gen 2 storage, if you have configured, this one is there, Azure Log Analytics, if you have configured your system storage, which workspace is taking what, your Git integration settings, Azure DevOps and GitHub both are available here. So you have to do setting from here. Once you are done with the setting, you will be able to use that. OneLake integration is available here. Workspace identity, this is no new security. You can use that. Then you have network security and monitoring. So event, you can,
Mm.
all the monitoring can be sourced to an event house and then you can analyze that. Then you have Power BI permission and you would be, so one of the things which I usually enable is data model setting. User can enable the models. Then you have data connection and embed code, delegate settings, data engineering. Specifically, you would be interested in Spark settings.
Yeah.
Which Spark engine you are using that you might be interested in. So that can be configured here. So do explore all these settings and their meaning if you're preparing for DP-700. That's my advice. And then manage access. You can give permission to the people by clicking on add. Here, four kind of roles are there. Admin, everything have access. Members, they can access till app level. They will not be able to delete the workspace for you. Then contributors, they are till report level. They will not have access to delete the app. App is something which we give to the end user for consumption of reports and other assets. Then viewer can only view it. They have read permission on all the assets. But that's not it. You can go to each and every item in Fabric and control what you wanted to give it to that user. And on top of that, we have RLS also, row level security, to secure your row level data. So meta is secured, means the asset is secure, and then you have the row also secured, and everywhere you will get this security. So I think this is RLS. Let me showcase you the correct one. Share.
Yeah, right at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, I need.
The
I
manage
have two
permission.
screens. So yes.
No
So
issues.
and everywhere you will get this similar kind of UI, and you have to only give the required permissions. And if you don't check anything, it means you are giving a read permission. Anything more, you need to check the box which you need. And this is available for all the items, so you can secure them and securely give the access.
So that's
So
great,
I
Amit. I think
yeah.
you pretty much covered off everything, right? Starting from how do we create workspaces, or even beginning of that, how do you provision a trial fabric environment? Then you talked about the workspaces. You also showed a glimpse of the admin portal where the tenant administrators how they can manage the fabric environment. You talked about the fabric capacity and how you can assign it to the workspace, the settings that you can alter with the workspace, what are the different type of fabric items that you can create within the workspace, and also last but not the least, you also mentioned about the different roles that you can assign to the workspace. Just on that note, especially when you are taking up certification exams, always read the question thoroughly, because when they're asking you what permissions that you will be giving for a particular group or a user, you should always apply the principle of least privilege, and they will specifically mention that in the question itself. Apply the principle of least privilege. So don't give them too much permissions, just give them what is really required. That's what it means. So as Amit was mentioning, go through those roles, and they are really important to understand what each role can offer for users.
Yes,
Great, Amit.
and if you have source control, you will get a button like this. So that's the last item I wanted to showcase you. We'll go back to the slides, and I think I'm done with next 2 3 slides. So
Sure.
I'll pass
I'm,
back the control to Anu to take
that's
us
right.
through the journey, next item in the journey.
Great. I'm already on that. And because I think pretty much you have covered everything as an introductory session on what people need to know about Fabric, I'm going to touch on the ingesting and the storing of the data within Microsoft Fabric. So one of the things that we looked at as part of Fabric is Fabric provides you different ingestion capabilities. So we briefly touched upon shortcuts. We briefly touched upon mirroring. And keep in mind, shortcuts are typically like your like a symbolic links. So the original data will be sitting in the original source. In our case, like if you have a data lake storage Gen 2, the data will be still sitting in there, but we'll be creating a symbolic link inside Fabric to access that data. So it is the data is not duplicated in Fabric, but literally it is going to be pulled over from the data lake storage Gen 2 with the help of shortcuts. You can just mimic this with the similar to how you have desktop shortcuts, right? So same concept. Similarly, like mirroring is another thing which Amit also mentioned. So if you want to bring the data inside Fabric, and if you're dealing with the different operational data stores like Cosmos DB or Azure SQL, or even we saw Snowflake, but keep watching that space because there will be more data stores that will be added. You can bring in the data inside Fabric with the help of mirroring. But apart from these two, because there is restrictions on what type of data sources or shortcut support and notebook support, you have other things like you can use the data factory pipelines. So the copy activity that Amit was mentioning about, because I have customers like where they want to bring almost 100 tables from the ERP system inside Fabric. So they don't need to go and create a separate pipeline for each and every table. So they can create what we call it as the metadata driven pipeline. So write a single pipeline, use a SQL table where you can load all the different sources and destination tables, and you can iterate that single pipeline to bring in data from 100 different data sources. And the other option you have got is data flows Gen 2. And look at that important aspect in the brackets like low code. So what it basically says is like if you are a data engineer who would like to prefer graphical user interface tools, and probably like data flows Gen 2 is your way to go. You can bring the data, you can transform the data, everything with the help of graphical user interface. And of course, I work with a lot of data scientists who pride using Python, and they want to use notebooks for everything. And of course, Fabric supports that too. So if you want to, as Amit was mentioning, getting the data into bronze, silver, and gold, you want to manage everything with the help of notebooks, you will be able to just use notebooks to do that. So depending on what you really want to do, and do I don't want to do duplication of the data, and if my data sources support either shortcuts or mirroring, I'll start exploring that first before I start looking at whether to use data flows Gen 2, data factory pipelines, or notebooks. There is a great decision guide that is available on the MS Learn website, especially to give you what type of questions that you need to ask your customers in order to make a decision on which is a good ingestion capability that you can use. The last two things, which is the event stream. So if you're dealing with the real-time data, we have a real-time intelligent component that is available in Fabric, and you can utilize event streams to get all your events inside Fabric. and also direct upload. So if you want to upload files directly inside Fabric, and I think pretty much it will be least because most enterprises, they use operational data stores to store the data, right? But that option is also available if you want to bring the data with the help of direct uploads. So that is your ingestion options that you have got. But when you talk about storage options, and again, we talked about the likes of Lakehouse, the likes of data warehouse. And one of the important thing I want to talk about is, when do you choose between a Lakehouse or a warehouse? Again, there is a decision guide. So if you go to MS Learn Fabric website and look for the decision guides, you have a decision guide for what is the ingestion techniques that I can choose and what questions I should be asking. Similarly, what is the storage option that I should be choosing? Is it a lakehouse or a warehouse? And what questions I should be asking the customer to make that call? So a classic example is like if you are customers are dealing with just structured data and their resources are comfortable in using just the T-SQL. So probably warehouse is sufficient because they are dealing with just a structured data and they're comfortable using T-SQL. And you can also use a lakehouse, especially if you're dealing with structured, semi-structured, as well as unstructured data. So thanks for the decision guides. I think that is rolling currently. The link is, make use of that, because pretty much in all my training sessions, I point them to this great decision guide uh, just to quickly understand what type of key questions that you should be asking. Moving on from Lakehouse and Warehouse, you have the SQL database, which is the support for transactional database. And this particular one was announced as part of the Ignite last year. So lots to watch in that space, and it's pretty new. And then we have the Event House, which is basically when we are dealing with real-time data, and everyone knows KQL, Custom Query Language. And so pretty much it is using the KQL database and to store real-time data. And it is a really powerful, the KQL database is really powerful in order to hold your real-time data. Any points that you want to add, Amit, on this?
Yeah, so I think your choice of, I think, lakehouse versus data warehouse, you have quite a few choices, but you have to remember that unstructured data is something which has to go to the lakehouse.
Because that's right.
And lakehouse and warehouse are going to be participant of your bronze, silver, and gold. SQL database is still your traditional transactional database, which you can use for transaction load and creating your apps.
And that's why when you are talking about creating a bronze, silver, or gold, right, there is no one size fits all. It's not that you need to say like, oh, if I start with a lake house, I have to go all the way with a lake house. You can have a lake house in the bronze, lake house in the silver, and then you can have either a warehouse in the gold. So it's all depending on exactly what the users or your customers really require. There is this flexibility within Fabric. It's not that it is dictating that you have, if you start with a lake house, everywhere you have to use the lake house. So definitely check those decision guides that will help you to guide the right questions to ask to your customers.
I would like to say sometime if you are unchoose, you can choose multiple of them, create shortcut finally in a lakehouse and create your semantic model. You still
Excellent.
can live with all the technology together.
That's right. And we do that, right? So some of the customers I work with, and I do a lot of proof of concepts with them, they pretty much give me a data source where I can use shortcuts. They say like, oh, I want to ingest this data where I can use shortcuts. I want to bring in Snowflake data. I can use mirroring for that. So we can pick and choose the different options in there. It's not like, oh, if I start with copy pipeline, every data I have to bring from every data store using copy pipeline. So as I said, there are quite a few questions and things that you have to keep in mind if you want to choose a proper ingestion method. So here are some of the things that you have to consider. The data volume. So how much data that I'm going to bring inside Fabric, not only the full loads, but also for incremental loads. What is the types of data that I'm going to bring in? So structured, semi-structured, unstructured. So as Amit was mentioning, what is that going to be? What is my ingestion frequency is going to be? So is it going to be real time, near real time, or I'm okay, like it's a batch process? And what is the developer persona and skill set? And a lot of people forget this, right? And I always have this because every time when I go to my customers, they pull me back and say, no, Pama, like I don't want to go with JSON. I want to stick with T-SQL because my team is comfortable with T-SQL. And sometimes I had to reverse the architecture for that reason, saying like, okay, so they want to go with, even though they don't know whether they want to use store semi-structured or unstructured in the future, they want to stick with a warehouse exactly for that reason, because the skill set that their people are comfortable with is T-SQL. And also sometimes you have to understand the integration needs. Even though Fabric gives you a variety of integration options with a different like not only on Azure but also with other cloud platforms, understanding that will also help you to choose the right ingestion method, performance requirements, and what is the level of complexity of data transformation. So do you think like I want to, it's really lot of complex data transformations, can I use data flows gen 2 for that, or is it going to be more efficient and performant if I do the transformations using a notebook? So ask these questions, understand it, and even if required, do a POC to just figure out what is the right thing, right ingestion method for you to use. Same thing with data store. We have to consider the volume, the data types, developer persona and skill set, the data organization, and also like some of the security features like Amit was pointing, right? So we have security features everywhere in Fabric, like at different levels you can apply them. And also like understand where I want to store the data. Do I need to provide advanced analytics support? And also like what are the maintenance and optimization techniques that I have to carry out? So when we talk about Delta tables, there is already, you can configure maintenance on those Delta tables, and a lot of interesting things, especially when we talk about Lakehouses. Am I ingesting a lot of small files, or am I bringing in large, big files for ingestion? So they make a difference also. So that's why it is really important for you to understand like the characteristics within the organization for these aspects, and then you can choose the appropriate data stored within Fabric.
Yeah, and data maintenance is little more control in lake houses compared to warehouse, because there we can control using the PySpark. Quite a few things are under our control.
Cool. The next part is like how do we integrate the different data sources with Microsoft Fabric? Again, well, for integration also, it's the same techniques like how we use for ingestion. Like you can bring in Data Factory, which has got a lot of connectors, source destination connectors. You can pull data from anything and you can push data to any destinations. You can use data flows Gen 2. You can use the pipelines, notebooks. As I said, if people are comfortable writing Python code, and if you're dealing with real-time data, go for real-time analytics. And the purpose-built real-time analytics for dealing with real-time and near real-time. So if you are dealing with that is the workload in your organization, just go with those components. And of course, you can get the real-time data also stored in one lake. So when you use real-time analytics, you will get to see that where you will be able to store the real-time data as it is coming through, and you can persist them in one lake. So this is just a showcase of how a pipeline, typical pipeline will look like in Microsoft Fabric. So we are not going to elaborate too much about this today because we have a separate session tomorrow where they are going to talk about all these different ingestion techniques where they will walk you through that. But just to keep in mind, a pipeline is a collection of activities, and the collection of activities could be bringing the data, transforming the data, and persisting into a destination. And you can run this pipeline in a schedule, and you will be able to get to see that too in tomorrow's session. This is the Fabric notebooks. You can create notebooks and the supported languages or Spark SQL, Scala, Python, or and you can use HTML and even like Markdown you can use in order to write your instructions. You can schedule and automate. So if you want to schedule a notebook to run at a particular frequency, you will be able to do that. Everything starting from getting the data all the way to visualizing the data, you can, if you want to do that, you will be able to do that in notebooks. Nothing stops that, and that's what pretty much typical data scientists would prefer to do. They love using this, but sometimes we have to tell them who is the end consumer here. So if the end consumers are going to be the end users in the organization, let us give them cool tool like Power BI visualization tool rather than giving them a notebook. Cool.
And explore the feature how you can create a Power BI report from notebook. That is even
Excellent. Yeah,
interesting.
that's right.
Yeah.
And the Fabric real-time analytics. And this is where I talked about if you are dealing with real-time or near real-time data, that is, the Fabric real-time analytics workload has been specifically designed to handle this data set. So underlying the data will be stored in KQL database, and also it is going to be, if you want, it can be persisted in one lake too. And also keep that in mind. The reason KQL is being used is because already, if you're dealing with telemetry data in Azure, we use log analytics behind the scenes. And When we talk about log data, that's a large volume of data and which you can manage with log analytics and KQL queries. With real-time data, that's the same thing. We have lot of events that will be happening in a quick succession. So if you want to bring the data, analyze the data in real time, then probably you need a really scalable data store, and that's why KQL is there to support that. So again, watch this space in terms of real-time analytics if you want to do real-time ingestion of your either real-time or near real-time data. So I want to finally come to the last part of this session, which is around some practical tips for succeed with the DP-700 exam. So as I said, make sure you sign up for the trial. And there is a lot of MS Learn articles that you can use, and you can get hands-on practice by using the trial. Look at the study guide, look at the resources that we have been posting, like the decision guides, and also the study guide tells you like exactly which modules you need to use to prepare. There are practice tests available on MS Learn. So basically, like it's like an assessment. So once you are ready, go and take the assessment exam. And if you feel comfortable and you really score really well, and then you can go and take up the actual Microsoft exam. Yeah, it's all about practice, right, Amit? Like passing Microsoft certification exam is all about the amount of practice that you do, and also some sample scenarios that you work through with the trial version, and that will help you to get going and get certified successfully.
Yeah, I think pay attention to detail. One of my advice is that there are very granular level permission, and you should pay attention to each and everything when you are practicing. That will help you out.
And don't forget the principle of least privilege too.
Yes.
Great. So what's coming up is tomorrow, as I said, there is a continuation of this particular session, like which is they will be focusing around how to ingest and transform the data using Microsoft Fabric. So don't miss that. So if you have signed up for this session, go ahead and sign up for that too. And also the subsequent two sessions happening on Jan 30th on monitoring and optimizing your solutions, and Feb 7 on preparing for the exam day and open Q&A. Yeah, over to you, Amit.
Yeah, so I think as we discussed in the starting, if you plan to attend the Microsoft Fabric Community Conference, here is the discount code, and we would like to see some of you there. If you're there, just you will get an app where you can able to find out who all are attending and should be able to connect and meet. So you utilize this code, and if you're connected with some of your Microsoft partners, then you can get a discount code from them also.
Yeah, we will be there, and get in touch with us, and that would be great.
Can we activate Fabric capacity?
Okay, so there is a question here. Can we activate Fabric capacity? Well, we have already activated a Power BI trial. Yes, I think so. You're talking about a Fabric capacity is like on Azure that you want to create a capacity. Yes, you can, because you can have multiple capacities in Fabric, and you can assign different capacities to different workspaces. Yeah, that you can definitely do.
Yeah, and if you are thinking about trial, when you have a trial, then just try to do one thing is basically go and try to create a lake house or a warehouse. And if the fabric trial is available for you as per the tenant and as per other permission, then it may upgrade you to the fabric trial. But
So
capacities are definitely you can use multiple capacities as Anu already explained.
that's right. And also don't forget 50% discount for your DP-700 exam. It ends 31st March. So make use of this opportunity. The trial version is there. Sign up for that, and just to prepare and get certified.
Time for Q&A now.
That's right. We have only a couple of minutes, so we will take up what we can. Otherwise, you have our LinkedIn profiles, and you can always reach out to us. And we are part of the community. So I think we will be able to answer any questions that you have got, and feel free to reach out to us. And thanks, Amit. It was always great joy to present with you. And yeah, thanks for co-presenting along with me.
Thanks, Anu. Thanks everyone who has joined this today morning India time and late US evening time and New Zealand late New Zealand Australia timing. Thank you all. It is a pleasure giving this session along with Anu.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.